Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful. And for the faithful, I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal. And I'm here tonight with Kurt Leavins. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, Dave. How are you tonight?
Good.
Never in doubt, as Bruce McCurdy would say.
Never really was. Maybe a little bit. Cairo kept missing the net, Jordan Cairo. I'm like, I fully understood the decision of Holloway and Broberg to go to St. Louis. I think actually every player in that, like in at least in the final decision, acted fairly rationally. The Oilers did in not matching. They didn't have the cap space. It would have sent a bad message, and it was risky. But mainly they didn't have the cap space. St. Louis had ample cap space. It was a good risk for them. Broberg and Holloway, it was kind of a no-brainer. Who turns down millions of dollars? I know some people say, like, if you get in a good situation on a team, you should stay. But I think that they were going to a more opportunity on another team. And but anyway, all that said, Kurt, if I was at the game, I still would have booed them. Because hockey, right? That's the fun of hockey, is booing the bad guys. Like, it's not. This isn't like real life where you have to be wholly rational and fair. It's tribal, and they rejected my tribe. So to hell with them. I'm going to boo them.
See, you and I see it the same way. I saw a bunch of people online tonight wringing their hands. Oh, they shouldn't be booing them. It was the Oilers' fault. It's like, screw that. These two guys did walk away from your team. It's okay to boo them. And it's all right for two things to be true at the same time. Yeah, it was fair that those guys took the money. You and I probably would have done the same thing, David. But at the same time, these guys went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and then turned and ran to a team that missed the playoffs. So if I'm a fan and I've paid God knows how much money for my tickets, damn right I'll boo if I want to. I completely defend their right to do that.
I booed Wayne Gretzky when he came back to Edmonton, just as a show of support for my team that was down in the dumps, missing Wayne Gretzky. We all missed the hell out of Wayne Gretzky. I never forgave Pocklington, but I booed Wayne Gretzky. It really is. The sports is this other. It's a separate world from the real world. It is a place where we are allowed and permitted. It's a healthy place to funnel our tribal instincts, which can be super negative in the real world. When they play out in the real world, it can cause all kinds of harm and damage. So we have this kind of outlet, let off steam, being sports fans and being totally partisan, tribal, unfair to the other guys. It's all okay. I think it's what it's about. It's what, on a certain level, it's what it's all about.
Yeah, well, I was all over Jay Woodcroft for how he doled out ice time or didn't to Dylan Holloway. I was really hard on Jay Woodcroft. Yes, you were a huge
Holloway fan, Kurt.
Yeah, and I think Jay Woodcroft is one of the reasons why Holloway's gone, quite frankly. Is because he just never got a chance, right? But if I'm in that rink tonight, I'm still booing.
And there was lots to boo is the good news. There was lots to boo, although Holloway came on in the end. Kurt, this is our two good things, two bad things, and two numbers podcast. Let's kick it off with your good thing.
Oh, my good thing is on a night when the Oilers skaters probably weren't at the top of their game. And I think Stuart Skinner pitched a darn good game to help them win. But when you're not playing your best, you got to get production and contributions from someone other than the usual suspects. And tonight, the Edmonton Oilers got production from players off of all four of their lines. You expect McDavid and Draisaitl to do their thing every night, and they did. 2 points for each of them again tonight.
Yeah.
But you know what? You got the two depth goals, including as it turned out, really important 4-2 goal by Troy Stetcher, his first as an Oiler.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those when you get those depth contributions, Corey Perry with the deflection in front, they don't win that game if they don't get a goal from their third and their fourth lines. And with the parity that there is in the NHL today, in a lot of cases, most teams can match up all right with your first two lines. So you kind of have to win with your bottom six. And I really thought tonight that Edmonton did that. Now, there were certainly many imperfections in the bottom six, particularly in the bottom three, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But But, you know, let's talk for a moment about that fourth goal in particular, where Adam Henrique ties up his man on the faceoff, which enables the Oilers to get possession, right? Veteran play by a good, solid center who's good in the dot. Then Jeff Skinner, who we all agree has been off to a slow start this year, he's really starting to feel his oats now. And his play behind the net to win the race for the puck and then to putt the puck out to the point was a really sharp play. And then Stetcher, hey, who's kidding who? You want Jordan Binnington to stop that puck if you're the St. Louis Blues coach. But Troy Stetcher did what how many fans, David, say every game, put the puck on net, put the puck on net. You know, don't, as Bob Stauffer would say, our mutual friend, stop being so deselective. Well, Troy Stetcher wasn't deselective on that play. He put the puck on net and went in. But those are three depth guys, right? Henrique and Skinner and Stetcher, and the Oilers might not win that game without the contribution from the guys in the bottom six. So I thought scoring production from guys from all four lines was key to victory for the Oilers tonight.
Yeah, the third line is an interesting line, Janmark, Henrique, and Skinner. I think it's got some promise, and I don't think it's going to last. Like when Evander Kane comes back eventually, everything gets shaken up again. Yeah, and we'll see where it all comes down. But you know, Henrique and Skinner, both highly respected, skilled NHL veteran hockey players. Mm-hmm. And Skinner made a really nice play behind the net on that goal to win the puck back. And it's good. Stetcher's providing, like, it sounds like Oilers are. You still hear rumors, you know, Oilers are going to be trading for a defenseman, but Stetcher probably be the one that would come out of the lineup, I'm guessing. Yeah. But man, he's played well in the last month. He's just buzzing everywhere and making plays all the time. Now he had some rough moments in his own end tonight, but that was a hell of a play. Jordan Binnington, Canada's starting goalie. Kurt, what do you think about that?
Yeah, don't get me started on Team Canada. I'm worried about our goaltending in that tournament. We'll see how that plays out.
As we were talking briefly before the podcast, Aiden, like every time I see Aiden Hill, he kills the Oilers. So I've got a really good impression of Aiden Hill, but his overall play has not been that high. So we'll see about that.
No, and Montembeault, the guy, the third goaltender picked, I suspect you and I probably agree why he was selected. And you know what? I don't mean any ill will toward the young man. I'm happy for him. But you know, Stuart Skinner's played 35 Stanley Cup playoff games. He might not be a bad choice for a third goaltender in a tournament like that. Just saying.
I would have picked Logan Thompson. He's the hottest Canadian goalie right now. And, you know, it was John Shannon who raised this issue on Oilers Now. He says Hockey Canada is political. They needed a Quebec player on the team. And four of the 7 games are in Montreal. Montembeault's playing in Montreal, so you know, maybe to sell tickets or get interest or to keep people from being too unhappy. You know, the third goaltender on a team isn't a big thing, so I don't think this is the biggest deal in the world. But Kurt, as a Canadian hockey fan and a team, like, to me, the Team Canada games are the most important games. I'm a huge Oiler fan, but I've never been happier than when the Team Canada won big tournaments.
Yep, me too.
And the shocking and the sad thing is, so many of those tournaments were won in large part by utterly fantastic French Canadian hockey players. Mm-hmm. Cornway in 72, Savard, Lapointe, Mike Bossy tipping in the goal in 84, Lemieux in 87 scoring the big goal. It's just on and on.
Yeah.
And what's shocking is when you look at it, there's some really good NHL players from Quebec still, but I don't know what's happened to their hockey development system. There's no super elite. There's no superstar from Quebec. No. And there's not one coming.
And the funny thing is, if they think they need a French Canadian on that team to sell tickets, really on a team that has Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby, you need a French Canadian player on there, your third goaltender, to sell tickets. Wow.
They could have picked Marc-Andre Fleury, frankly. Like, I think that would have been a better pick.
Right? Like, so if you're in the tough spot and you need to go to a third goaltender, how about a guy like that? You know,
if it's that desperate.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because if you're going to your third goaltender, something has gone wrong, right? So
that is true.
and judging by Jordan Biddington tonight, that might be game one.
Oh,
Oh dear.
oh, well, I think it's going to be Aiden Hill. I've always thought that, he looked like the best bet, but I guess when he's not playing the Oilers, he's not always the best bet. All right, my good thing, Kurt. I might. I don't. I've been picking Darnell Nurse a lot, but I'm going to pick him again.
I would.
Night after night, game after game for about since the start of November. He's been in the handful of the Oilers' best players every single game. And Kurt, I cannot tell you a better bit of news for the Edmonton Oilers than that. He is such a critical player on the team. And if he kept having playoffs like he had last year, they can't win the cup. You can't win the cup with a defenseman playing that much and playing that poorly. So tonight, and what we've seen though is since he was injured in the preseason, I think injury is probably explaining much of it, but he just keeps making pretty much all of the plays. Like, there's a few iffy ones, but tonight he made that great pass to Corey Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Finding Corey Perry in the slot which was a fantastic tip in by Corey Perry as well. Maybe Corey Perry's one really good play of the game, but it still was an excellent play by Corey Perry and a great pass by Nurse. He clobbered Broberg with a hit, knocked him to the ice, and got a huge applause for that. And on the 5-on-3, there was an excellent block shot by Darnell Nurse.
Yeah, right in front. Hey,
Yeah. So he, man, it's fascinating. I don't know what it is, Kurt, because I never bought into, before last playoffs, I never bought into the narrative that Darnell Nurse is a bad decision maker on the ice. But I was starting to wonder, what is up? Because he did seem to be making so many bad decisions. And now all of a sudden, he ain't. He's making all the right decisions. Yeah. And I don't know if he's changed his game. I can't put my finger on if he's tried, because we were always saying he's trying to do too much. Well, he's doing a whole heck of a lot right now.
He is.
So,
well, you know what, David?
Say?
I was told last year by someone who should know, without giving me specifics, said, Kurt, Darnell Nurse was far more injured than you or anybody else realized. And I thought to myself, okay, that explains a lot of things, because if you are seriously injured, not only does it limit you physically, but it has an impact on your mental calculations in a game as well, because you can't compensate the way you normally do when you can't skate the way you skate, or if you can't be as physical as you would normally be, you have to defend differently. You end up turning into a different player because you don't have the same physical tools to play the way you've always played. Yeah. So if I'm taking this person's word for it, that explains a heck of a lot. And while I know a lot of people were worried, he's not playing in preseason either. As it turns out, I think that was pretty wise, actually, because now he's healthy and looks like the Darnell Nurse of, would you say 2 years ago, David, or at least close to it?
When he earned his contract, he had a really good year. And I know, a lot of people say, well, he played a lot with McDavid, and that's true. He did. And maybe that bumped up his salary. And I mean, he was going to get paid a lot of money anyway. I was hoping it would be low eights, but it turned out to be 9.2 or something like that anyway. Well, so that's David, all water under the bridge.
A lot of people might say, yeah, Leavins, you're an okay writer, but it's only because you work for David Staples.
Little do they know, Kurt, that you and Bruce are on your own. Like, you guys write what you want. I never ever say anything, because that's the way I like it as a writer.
No, God bless you. You never do. Let it be known now. David Staples has never once told me what to write. It's one of the reasons why I love working at the Cult of Hockey. So,
well, I know what writers like, and you guys are doing your job. That's for sure. Kurt, what you just said about Nurse made me think, okay, here's what I am seeing. Now that you bring that up, and to the limited extent I play beer league hockey, sometimes injured or not, I do have some knowledge of what that's like. But I just think what we're seeing now is, the key to Darnell Nurse is his skating. Mm-hmm. He's got to be agile and fast on his skates. He's got to be fully in command and confident on his skates. And I think that confidence and agility on his skates, when he does make a mistake, he can quickly recover for it, and he can head off mistakes. Like there was a play tonight where he charged back. I think it was a rush. Robert Thomas was rushing in, I think, and he got back really fast. And I just thought, wow, look at Nurse move, and then he pivoted back to his back, going full speed. It looked effortless, and I just thought, there's Nurse. That's what he does, and he couldn't. I don't think maybe he could do that, and that probably impacted his confidence, his decision making, and it certainly impacted his ability to get around the ice, which is the key to hockey.
Yeah.
And if you can't get around the ice, you can't make the plays, and that's what we were seeing, and we're seeing now a healthy skating Nurse, looking like Darnell Nurse. I mean, the hope was, Kurt, that when he did sign that contract, which was a major risk for the Oilers on a certain level, that here's a player who's actually heading into his defensive prime. Yeah. He's heading into his best years. And for us not to see that in a couple playoffs in a row was a little bit harrowing as an Oilers fan.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now, almost everyone that I'm seeing online and on social media is noticing it. Like, it's not just us. No. It's pretty much a consensus.
Yeah,
that this guy is playing great hockey. So
I think it was an inspired choice of yours tonight. If I hadn't gone with what I went with, I would have gone with that too. So I'm seeing the same thing.
Kurt, what is your bad thing?
Well, it wasn't a perfect game tonight, and certainly there were a few warts in the Oilers game, and I think the depth scoring and the goaltending to a certain extent bailed them out. But I gotta say, there's a problem with the Oilers' fourth line right now, and they're seriously, David, going to have to sort this out before it starts to hurt them. You know me, I'm not the biggest fancy stats guy in the world, but sometimes they speak very loudly. So tonight at 5-on-5, the fourth line, Derek Ryan, Corey Perry, Connor Brown, all three players who I've got lots of respect for. 5-on-5, CF, Connor Brown, 28%. Ugly, right?
Yeah.
Just wait. Derek Ryan, 22%. Ugh. Fugly, right? Oh, yeah. Just wait. Corey Perry, 16%. I could get a 16% 5v5 CF, Dave. And look, these are all real NHL players, but I'm not the first person to say this, but I just don't think you can have Corey Perry and Derek Ryan on the same line in the same game. They're too slow. They're smart. There's certain things they still do well. I still think they can help the team. But tonight, St. Louis, which isn't an especially fast team, just rolled right over the fourth line. Like, it wasn't close. And for a team like the Oilers that was supposed to be coming into the season with improved depth, and I was one of the guys who said, yeah, I think they've got improved depth. Yeah. But not when Ryan and Perry are on the same line at the same time. It's and I think it comes right down to they just can't keep up. You can see the wheels turning. They're both really smart hockey players. They know where to be, David. They're not making mental mistakes. They can't get there.
They cannot.
Yeah, and something needs to change. Well, and we know something will. At some point, Arvidsson will come back. Kane will come back, and one or both of those guys will sit. But in the meantime, man, tonight was a perfect example of this is a problem.
You're right. Arvidsson's coming back too. I forgot about that momentarily. Arvidsson and Kane are coming back. And it'll be interesting to, if the Oilers have the cap space to keep those guys on the NHL roster at that time.
Probably not, right?
Because ideally they would be rotated into games. They both, what I noticed, Kurt, most frustratingly is, although they're okay on defense, so many plays die on the offensive end on their sticks. It's the old McTavish complaint about forwards. If that play's done on your stick repeatedly, that's a big problem. Yeah. So I think one of them maybe can, if they rotate them, that might work depending on what you need on that particular game. I wouldn't be surprised if both are out. I just think they need faster, younger, more aggressive, better players on the fourth line to win the Stanley Cup. And it's as simple as that. So and I've been going on about this a lot all year long on this podcast, so I won't say anything more about it. Let's go to my bad thing, which was, Kurt. I was going to go with Broberg and Holloway, but in the last part of the third, Holloway came on. He scored a goal and he started roaring up the ice. He got a number of decent shots on net.
Yeah,
and he looked like the Dylan Holloway that so many people in Edmonton really thought was going to be a good player and the next kind of power forward on the Edmonton Oilers.
The guy Jay Woodcroft wouldn't play.
He wouldn't play Philip Broberg either very much.
No,
and he played Desharnais over him and over him and Kesselring. And anyway, it was interesting because when Broberg heading into this season, Broberg had played in the top four, second pairing with Darnell Nurse in the Stanley Cup Finals, and had held his own. He had kept his head above water. Mm-hmm. So at other times, though, he looked too passive and a little out of the game as an Oiler. And so heading into the season, like in the week when that offer sheet was being discussed, I was saying, I think he's got a 70-30 chance of being a top four demon this year. So I thought it was a good bet that he would do it, but there's still a 30% chance that because we've seen this before, players who have spurts of good play, but they can't maintain it. So he clearly is. He is maintaining it. He's off to a good start by all accounts in St. Louis. But tonight he looked like that Broberg in the 30% category.
Yeah, kind of did, didn't he?
He did. On the first goal, I put a picture up on the internet. There's a picture of Perry with the puck in the net, and the two closest players, you can see the sweaters, are Holloway and Broberg. Holloway totally blew the play. He was supposed to cover for Suter, who was up on the play. Suter probably shouldn't have been up on the play, but Holloway never covered for him, and that's why Perry was wide open. But Broberg was also caught flat-footed on it and doing a little bit of puck watching, and he was out of position as well because I think that Perry was essentially Broberg's man. He had kind of moved over to cover Draisaitl rushing into the zone. Then on the next goal, it was kind of one of those unfortunate mistakes for a defenseman. But Bouchard made a similar mistake recently. Broberg goes around the net and he's going to fire the puck up around, and it hits Parayko right into the slot to the
McDavid.
I thought that was a little bit of karma, honestly. Yeah, there you go, Philip. Take that for Leaving Edmonton. You make a turnover, and guess who it's going to go to? The best player on the world. You decided you did not want to be his teammate of. So take that and wear it. So deposit it in the net. I really do like the player, and I haven't seen him in St. Louis enough to comment on him tonight, but I was glad to see him not succeed in his return to Edmonton. That made me a little bit happy. So
yeah, you know what? I hope both young guys have good careers.
So do I. I do too, actually. I agree.
For the most part, don't hold grudges. As you know, because you and I and Bruce have had this conversation, I was never as sold on Broberg as you guys were, and you guys were probably. Yeah. And you guys are probably smarter about than I was, and I think I was maybe the bigger Holloway fan of the three.
Yeah. So yep. You were demonstrative, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it comes out in the wash. But it kind of full circle to the conversation. It's, I hope both these kids have good careers and make lots of money, but I'm still kind of pissed off they left the Oilers, and I'm entitled, and so is everybody that feels that way. So
I guess I hope they do too, although if they didn't. I hope they do too. Just, that's in the bigger picture, of course. And Holloway, like, it's interesting. Like, I don't know if I put an odds on him of being like a top 6 forward this year. I can't remember if I talked about that, but there was a chance he wasn't going to be, right? And mainly possibly due to injury or just not enough hockey smarts, maybe. Like, it wouldn't work out. But he is, man, the Oilers miss him. And they wouldn't have traded McLeod, I don't think, if they had realized what was going to play out there. They would have kept one of those fast guys, because that was such a double whammy, unexpected double whammy, and it's really impacted the Oilers. But that's hockey, and we'll see. This losing those two players could cost the Oilers the Stanley Cup, is the real kick in the shins, or that region, and it still hurts. Like, it still bugs me that happened. And until the Oilers win a cup, it's going to bug me. Like, it's just, it could have a huge impact on this team and the fate of the Oilers. And I just really want McDavid and Draisaitl to win a cup in Edmonton. Just even one, that'll be enough. But until that happens, it's kind of hard to rest easy as an Oilers fan with anything that really negative that happens to the team.
Although I will say that result tonight put a little bit of salve on that burn.
Yes, for the meantime.
Yeah.
Kurt, what is your number?
5 out of 6. Oilers have won 5 out of 6. Everybody was losing their minds at the start of the season. Even those of us who were confident that the club was going to be good were kind of looking around going, what's going on here? But I think we can agree that over the last half dozen games or so, we're starting to see the Oilers team that I think we thought we'd see. Like a lot of people, I still think that this team is shy one actual top 4 D-man on top of what they have right now to be at what I would consider full strength. That's with Arvidsson and back. But I'm seeing a lot of elements. Like McDavid is clearly at or near the top of his game right now. Leon Draisaitl is one of the best players in the league, game in and game out. Stuart Skinner, after practically everybody else on the team off to a rough start, he's been good for the last little while. And stopped 29 of 31 tonight and kind of outplayed the guy that's going to be on Team Canada in front of him.
Yep.
A little bit of karma there too, right? So this makes me feel good. This gives me confidence that as we head toward Christmas, this team has found itself. Yet again, it struggles out of the gate. I don't know what it is about this team. Different coaches, different players for the most part, but they still seem to have the same MO. But I'm starting to see the same team game in and game out that I expected to see, and that gives me a modicum of confidence.
Yeah, if this team can get solid goaltending, and if it's healthy, more than that, if it's healthy, it's a Stanley Cup favorite if it's healthy. Yep. But being healthy is always iffy, especially because the NHL nowadays, especially, is such a tremendous, unbelievable grind.
Yeah,
it is. It is. So we'll see how that plays out. My number revolves around Stuart Skinner at 6 is the number, and he is. He's now on a 6-game kind of hot streak, and I think his save percentage is a bit above .920 in those 6 games. Kurt, he is an interesting goalie in that he is really prone to hot and cold streaks. Mm-hmm. So since he's been in the Oilers for part of 4 seasons now, and so I look at it as kind of for it to be a streak, it's got to be about 5 games. Although I fudged on one playoff thing, which is a 4-game hot streak. So in terms of like 5 games plus for a hot streak, and a save percentage like in the at least .915 or above, which is considerably above the league average. So Skinner now, he has had 10 hot streaks. One of them last year was 22 games long, a hot streak, .934 save percentage. 19 wins and 3 losses, more than 2 months. But he's had 10 of those, and he's on one now, this 6-game little run, and we'll see how long it can continue. But he's also had 8 cold streaks, one of them 13 games long, and 2 of them 12 games long, and one of those was in the 2023 playoffs was one of those cold streaks. So he can be, and he had an 8-game cold streak in the playoffs this past year. I guess it was the 2022 playoffs that he had the longer one, and then the 2023 was the 8-game one. So he's hot and cold, Kurt. And more so, like Jack Campbell was also that way, but he was just way more cold than ever hot. But I don't know what it is with Skinner. And I don't know how usual this is in the NHL because I don't look at other NHL teams as closely as the Oilers. But I know that Pickard has not been like this. He's just more up and down. Like he'll have 2 good games in a weaker game, 2 good games in a weaker game. That's kind of Calvin Pickard's MO. He's not prone to these streaks like Skinner is. And I don't believe Koskinen and Mike Smith were quite as streaky as Stuart Skinner is either. And I think that one of the things that may be going on is he is really dependent on team structure. And part of the reason he goes on bad streaks is because the Oilers do themselves. They go through streaks where they just don't play very strong defensive hockey.
Yep.
They're weak on defense, and they start to give up a lot of odd man rushes. And it just so happens that that's his real weakness, is the odd man rush, often leading to a seam pass. And he really does struggle with that. I think there's been some statistical analysis saying he struggles with that more than almost any other NHL goalie. Whereas he's really strong in his own zone, just in kind of zone play. As a blocker of shots, he can be like a wall. But tonight's game, it was interesting because the first grade A shot was a rush with a seam pass and an outside shot. And Skinner got over there and made the save. So he got off to a good start in that regard tonight. But I think that when the Oilers play with defensive structure, Stuart Skinner is good enough to win the Stanley Cup. But the Oilers really have to play that way. And it might not be the way they prefer to play. I don't think it is. I think they'd rather trade chances if they had their druthers, deep down. But they can't with Stuart Skinner as your goalie. That's not how he wins games. But he can win you games if the other team can get lots of zone time and cycle the puck and get lots of shots. He'll come up and he'll make those saves, but don't give up the odd man rushes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I buy most of what you're saying, and I think to add to that, fold in the fact that from a cap standpoint, this is how the Oilers are built.
Yeah.
They can't afford to have a goaltender like the one the New York Rangers just signed today. Like, they don't have $11.5 million to spend on a starting goaltender.
No, they don't.
They have this much money to spend on one, and as it is, Skinner's going to cost them more. He'll never be as much as Shesterkin is.
No.
But this is also a team that has McDavid and Draisaitl, and their contracts, and Connor's contract to come, and Bouchard's contract to come. So I think Stuart Skinner is going to be their goaltender of the future, but I think it's incumbent upon the team to adjust how they play, because from a cap standpoint, this is how the roster is constructed. And if you make the decision to go and say, no, we're going to go and get a legit number one goaltender, well, first of all, who's giving those up? And second of all, if you do so, you've got to throw your entire cap structure up in the air and rebuild it again. Because for the next few years, this club's locked in cap-wise. So there's that. The last thing I'll say is, I've had someone smart tell me this. Every player that gets to the NHL is good. The very good and great ones are consistent, and they grow into the ability to be able to do it game in and game out. And maybe what we're seeing is Stuart Skinner is simply on that journey to becoming a consistent NHL goaltender. He's still a really young guy, right? Time will tell. But yeah, these last half dozen games, he's certainly been, at least for 5 out of the 6, has been the Stuart Skinner we prefer to see.
Yeah, it's tough with the salary cap, because the truth is, if Stuart Skinner, he's got one more year after this one, I believe, on his contract.
Yep.
If he were to have a big year, like a super big year where he became, let's say he was consistently good, and let's say at like a 915, 920 save percentage, the Oilers couldn't afford him. Like, it's just like Broberg and Holloway. They were going to lose Broberg and Holloway. I just was hoping it wouldn't be this year. But when you look at their salary cap, it would be exceedingly difficult. Like, it's not impossible. Like, let's say Philip Broberg had become a top 4 defenseman in the Oilers, and had played really well in this year. And Ekholm's contract is up at the end of, not this year, but the year after.
Next year, yeah.
Yeah, so it's possible that they might have shifted the money from Ekholm to Broberg at some point and been able to keep him, but kind of highly unlikely that it was going to work out that way. Same with Holloway. There just isn't the money. So what I was hoping is they would get a great year out of both those young guys, but then you'd have to say goodbye. And it's the same with Skinner. If Skinner does get it together, it's going to be a massive challenge to sign that player.
Yet how do you not?
A contract.
Well,
that's a good question, Kurt. It's
because that's the guy you drafted and developed, right? He's your goalie, and the prohibitive cost of going out and getting somebody else, both in terms of the assets you'd have to spend and the cap you'd have to allocate toward it. That's a tough decision, man. But to your point, but the money's got to come from somewhere. So if he doesn't go, someone else has to. So yeah, it's tough, right?
Super tough. Kane's contract will be coming to an end by then. Ekholm's contract will be coming to an end by then. But you could see them wanting to sign Ekholm again, for instance.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is. Arvidsson's contract and Henrique's contracts will be coming to an end. So if Skinner did step up in this year and next year, or and get, let's say he's in the running for like 7 or 8 million, which is a real possibility, right? If he wins a Stanley Cup, that's a real possibility.
He's an $8 million goaltender if he wins the Stanley Cup. Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they could find a way to do it, but it's going to really be hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to really be hard. And you're right. Like it might even make sense. Like it'll be super hard to say goodbye. But if you're just super cold-blooded about it, just completely calculating cold-blooded, you might say, let him go. We'll bring in, like, they got this Samuel Johnson guy who's doing well in this Swedish League 2, this draft pick. They'll bring in someone, they'll figure out something else and have a goalie making $3 million as your starting goalie and see if they can win the cup again that way. That might be the cold calculating thing to do. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it is relevant to the discussion about Skinner, as you're saying, because they're not paying him that much money. And what do you expect on a certain level?
Yeah.
He's not going to be the best goalie in the NHL unless the Oilers get really, really lucky and he finds his A game consistently in the playoffs.
Let's be honest. Good Stu Skinner or bad Stu Skinner, he has been outperforming his contract ever since he took over the starting goaltending.
Boom. There you go, Kurt.
Right.
Good point. Excellent point. So that's true. And that's and this is how we rate NHL players now. We're all like little GMs in hiding.
It's so different,
out
right?
in the open.
Yeah, from 1978.
You never thought about it.
I can have Rogie Vachon and Ken Dryden? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look at the 80s Oilers. How much did we talk contracts? Only when it came time to, like, they had to move out players because Pocklington wouldn't pay. But no one ever thought about it or talked about it. And
I remember when Bobby Hull signed that big $1 million contract, and everybody talked about that, but it's the only contract anybody talked about.
Yes.
That's
right. All right, Kurt, this is the point of the podcast where I usually ask Bruce when their next game is, because I don't.
Oh, good God. This is where we point out how much we miss Bruce McCurdy.
We miss you, Bruce.
Not here. I was lucky I got the game time right tonight.
Hey, fans, this is why you have Google. We're not your Google. You can Google this, okay? Just leave us be. We don't know everything.
The fans for the fans.
Kurt, it was a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thanks for talking.
It was a real treat for me too, David. Good to see you.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.